Well, good morning, gardeners. It is a new month on this beautiful planet. And you know what that means? It is another month of stuff to plant, seed, grow, and just otherwise enjoy. So yeah, this is what we're gonna be doing in our garden for the month of August. So overall, the garden's doing pretty good. It is very hot, but it is doing good. Now, we were out here the other day and we were doing a couple things, and I do wanna show you exactly how hot it's been out here. This kind of shocked me when we found it. Inspecting my bees, and look at that. That bad boy just melted. The frame just wax melted right off the frame. So the bees are just kind of cleaning it up right now. And if you ask me, that's intense heat. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with this time of year. And so where I am in zone 8A in North Carolina, we still have another 6 weeks roughly of pretty warm temperatures until we start to see them kind of taper off decently. So we need to take all this into account for what we're doing. And so what I do is I'm going to try and go in order from the way I'm going to start things and plant things. But one thing I did just plant probably about 4 days ago, which I was going to do in August, but I went ahead and tried to get an uptake on it. And this is kind of a big, huge boo-boo by me. In my ever-growing effort to get more things started earlier, I went ahead and started my collards and my mustard seeds. And what happened was I put them in the trays and I left them out here and said, hey, whenever they sprout, we'll go ahead and move them inside. And it rained and it filled up multiple times. I had to keep coming out and dumping them. So you can see we actually washed some of the seeds away. Like this 6-pack is totally jacked up. So that is kind of an issue. That was a boo-boo on my part, and the mustard did not fare well at all. Good thing is, I'll just come out here and reseed that and then move it back in. But that would be the first thing, if I had not already done it, that I would start would be on my collards and my mustard greens. And I like to put my mustard greens behind my tomatoes because they, without getting super technical, they help to prevent root knot nematode, which we can get down here. So I'm trying to make it a practice of planting more and more mustard. Plus I also learned that I really enjoy it. So with as many tomatoes as we grow, that means we can grow a fair amount of mustard. So I'm pretty happy with that personally. But that would be the first thing that we're gonna plant. So, or start from seed, excuse me. We're gonna do the seed starting and then go to the planting. This is right now it's a ground cherry bed and it's doing very well. It's full. It does need a good weeding. We left a patch blank right here on purpose. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna end up flipping this bed here probably towards the end of the month. But we need to go ahead and get the seeds started for it. I already started some, but I'm gonna start a couple more. And so I'm gonna put rutabaga in that bed. So it's just gonna be basically a bed of rutabaga as far as I'm concerned. And we're gonna start planting it slowly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here and I'll show you. We have ground cherries here on this row and ground cherries on this row. So if you wanna guess where we're gonna put it, we're gonna start planting it right down the middle here. And then we're also gonna come in here, and once we weed this patch from, see if my finger draws it right, from here to here, once we weed that, then we're gonna start putting rutabaga in there and just building our rows out. And so what we'll do is we'll do half a row, and then we'll come back and we'll do another half of the row after we get that planted. And so that way we can continue to have our ground cherries growing and finishing out, especially on that side because it is a younger plant. So we want to get as much as we can out of it, but at the same time, we want to go ahead and get it going. So we get the front half. We should get those probably, they should ripen roughly about 2 weeks before the back half, and then we can have a staggered harvest as well. And that's really where we're looking at right now, is staggering our harvest for a lot of these things, because we do plan on doing full beds. And I think in that one I can plant like 100 rutabaga or something. I don't need 100 rutabaga all at once. I do have something else to show you, but I'd moved this hibiscus this year. Check that out. Man, that is a dessert plate sized rutabaga. I got rutabaga on the mind. Hibiscus for sure. So beautiful. Really happy to see that thing was going. It got shaded out, so we just kind of dug it up and plopped it in the ground about a month ago and worked out pretty well. So this is my son's bed here, and We did end up leaving the lima beans in, like I said, because I just wanted to see how they grew. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our first big flush harvest off of it. And then we're gonna completely pull up this front row, these front 2 rows, and we're gonna put our parsnips in the ground. So the parsnips are kind of tricky. They do take a very long time to germinate. So we're gonna have to plant them, water them, mulch them, water them. They can take up to 20 days to germinate. Now, I will say this, in the warmer temperatures like we're having, they tend to germinate faster. So maybe 2 weeks, roughly, which is still a long time, especially for such a delicate seed. But we really want to get those in the ground because they are a longer season crop. And the beautiful thing about them is once they go, we don't have to worry about them because we don't have to pull them. We can use the ground as our refrigerator and just harvest them at will and kind of come out here when we need a couple and grab them. So it's not something we need to store in our house, which is a beautiful thing. So, and even if we did, they store in the refrigerator for quite a while. We haven't looked in the greenhouse for a while, but this thing, it did great with the ground cherries, not so good with the okra, and it got a lot of the weeds came from under over on this side, so we needed to like really clean this side up, but we do need to start getting ready for that. So what we got to do is we got to start thinking about what we're going to plant in the greenhouse, and that gets a little bit complicated. So we've already started our cabbage, but that means if I do want to grow cabbage in there, which I think I do, I'm going to start my cabbage probably around the middle of August. I'm going to start them specifically for the greenhouse. And that's it. So, and then the middle of August is really going to be a big trigger point for us. So we're going to start our cabbage for the greenhouse. We are going to start some spinach for the greenhouse, more than likely. I'm not big into transplanting spinach, but I think for the greenhouse, the way it's going to work out better because of the way, you know, the sun hits and everything, to go ahead and get a plant in there is going to be a lot better than starting something. It's direct seeding, so we're going to do that. And then we're also, at this point, this is going to be a big trigger point. We're going to start doing our bok choy again. And so I'm still undecided about which bed to put them in. I know I'm going to do a row in the greenhouse for sure, but I'm not starting those until September. But the first, whatever section we go to pick out here, we're going to go ahead and start them around the middle of August. And so that'll give us a nice healthy plant to put in the ground. They love the cool weather that we're gonna hopefully get one of these days. It feels like a dream. But that way we can get it going and really get the bok choy moving. So we'll get all those going at that point. And I'm also gonna start some onions probably. I wanna test out a little bit of delayed onions. So we're gonna do a tray probably mid-August, and then I'll probably do another one around October and just kind of keep pushing the envelope a little bit more and more. And through the rest of the year, we'll do some more seeds like we did last year. But I want to figure out that sweet spot to get the most growth possible. So on that note, what we're going to do around the middle to the 3rd week of August is I'm going to come in here, and this whole row should be about done in the front. So this is the cantaloupe and the watermelon. And you can see we definitely have a little watermelon growing there. I do like these personal sized watermelons. I don't even know if you can see it, they're so small. I mean, we can harvest that and then we can just eat it and be done instead of having it sitting around. But we're gonna put our first row of spinach right there. And then what we're gonna do after that is we'll come through on an as needed basis, and anything that grows and gets kind of weak or needs to get pulled up is going to get replaced by spinach immediately, direct seeded. And then we're just going to work our way down until hopefully we'll have a full bed of spinach here. You may be thinking, boy, oh boy, a 4x8 bed, nothing to spinach, that's a lot of spinach. And you're exactly right. It is, but it also takes a lot of spinach to cook. So we're going to try and do as much spinach as we can. If it doesn't work out for fall because of the heat or whatever, now I do have some heat tolerant varieties we're going to do, then we'll do it again in the spring. But we want to give this a chance to really get up and going. And I want to utilize this area because this gets afternoon shade when the hottest part of the day is. So I want to utilize this as much as possible. Going back with that same thing, utilizing everything, we've left what's left of our corn here, just, I don't know, why not? So we're gonna pull all this up probably next week, weed it, mulch it, compost it, let it sit, and then the 3rd week of August, we are going to start our lettuce seeds, and we're gonna start filling out our lettuce, and we're also gonna put some of the collards in here too. I mean, 2 solid rows of lettuce right here, and 2 8-foot rows. We can get around 40 heads of lettuce. That's a lot of lettuce. So, you know, a lot of LOLs. So we can get all that going there, get some collard greens in here, and then also what we're gonna do at the same time is we're gonna come in this back row and we're gonna plant some daikon radishes. And so I don't know if you remember, but this bed, this whole section over here is dealing with compacted soil. So that's why we're doing the parsnips, the carrots, the daikon radishes. We're probably gonna do garlic back here. We're probably gonna do some onions back here. Anything that kind of just works that soil out a little bit. And we're gonna continue to till it lightly, just kind of get it churned up a little bit. Composting it, anything like that to get it going. But this is all the plan that we're going to do moving forward for that. So probably the 3rd week of August, we'll start planting that in. We're just going to direct seed those in there. We're not going to start them or anything like that. Just direct seeding and being done. And the lettuce at the same time. So if we start the lettuce, then we should be able to get them in around the 2nd week of September. And that means that they will be able to kind of beat the heat at that point, and we can minimize bolting as much as possible. And even then, in the middle of September, I still will probably get some bolting, but it is what it is. You gotta, you know, you just gotta deal with it. And if we get some bolting, we'll just cut them down and replant and reseed, and we'll just keep reseeding over and over and over as much as possible until the frost comes, because even lettuce can take a light frost. So there is that. So this bed here, this is gonna be all weeded next week. We're gonna weed it, amend it, shade it. And then we're gonna put our cabbages in here. So this will be a full bed of cabbage. And then once these cucumbers go, it's also gonna be peas. So we'll come back and put snow peas behind these cucumbers. And I just looked at these kales and forgot to tell you about the kale. To my surprise, they have not bolted this year, which is interesting. So we're gonna keep moving forward with this variety. This is the dazzling blue variety. And we're gonna start those probably this week. I'll start some kale plants, but I'm not gonna go super crazy. And I'm not going crazy on the kale plants, one, because we don't eat a whole lot of kale. The way I look at greens in general is, for the most part, to us, a green is a green is a green. So if we go out there and we're like, hey, we want some steamed greens, which we eat a lot of, or we want something for soup, I'll just kind of come out here and get whatever there is. So if it's collards, kale, even spinach, sometimes I can kind of go in between, turnip greens, mustard greens, anything like that. We'll just kind of use it at will. So yeah, we'll definitely do all cabbage in that bed. And then I'm probably gonna take my kale and put it in my containers. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But at first, we're definitely gonna go that route. So the sweet potato patch, very possible it could come up right at the end of August. It all depends on how the hurricanes are doing and what the weather is doing. But you can see they are super long, super big. Pretty confident in the sweet potatoes that we'll get. We don't want to leave them too long because we don't want them to crack. But this will end up being the broccoli bed. We've already started our broccoli. The issue here with this specific bed is this is the hottest bed in my whole garden. So technically, yes, we should be putting in our broccoli. We should be planting it at the end of August. Now, if this comes up, we're gonna have to do a quick turn and burn. Just quick turnaround. So we'll probably end up having to plant it, amend it, mulch it, furrow it, fertilize it, and then probably plant it all within a week's time. I don't like doing that. I have gotten to where I like to let my beds rest a little bit, but at the same time, the clock starts to tick. So, but being that this is the hottest bed, I absolutely do not want anything to bolt as far as broccoli goes, because in my area it's super sensitive. So we're gonna do the best we can, but that bed gets the most light. That one in the cabbage bed gets the most light, the most sun. So the temperatures are higher, but also they warm up quicker in the mornings. So when you get those nice frosty mornings that we will eventually end up getting, these plants will recover, because that's when you get these cold tolerant plants, that is the most important thing, is how fast can they recover the next day. And where we are, we recover pretty quick. You know, we might get down into, I don't know, the low 30s, upper 20s, but then the next day it'll be like 60 degrees. So these plants can continuously recover. And by utilizing that knowledge and putting them in those two beds, those crops that we want the most will be able to recover better and maybe be a little bit less sensitive to it, so they don't die back. All right, so one thing that I did last year, and I'm gonna do it again, is at the end of August, I'm gonna take my biggest and best garlic bulbs from this year, and I'm gonna put them in the refrigerator and just let them sit until I go to plant them, which will probably be about October or November. But that way they can I make sure that they get that chill period, because there is a slight chance here that we don't get that chill period that they need. And I think that's why we got the bigger and better harvest this year. So I want to keep moving forward doing that. And I'll just make sure that, like I said, right at the end of August, I put them in. Now, one thing I did do last year, and I'm gonna do it again, this bed, I put garlic in the front row, onions in the back. Obviously I'd flip that because we all know the outcome of that didn't work out well, solely because of the amount of sun it got. But it worked out really good because it was perfect timing for me to come in behind it and put in my second crop of tomatoes. So as I go through and I figure out what I wanna put where for next spring, because I have time with those two crops and they don't go in until much later, I can really look at my beds and say, hey, where do I want my second crop of tomatoes go? And that'll automatically be where my garlic and onions will go, because it just worked out way too perfect for that. I mean, here we are at the beginning of August and we are just about to start getting red tomatoes. We are 2 months ahead of last year. So that worked out extremely well. And just moving forward, I'm gonna continue doing that. And the thing is they will help out with compacted soil somewhat, but the problem is they don't drill real deep down. So I kind of need to work that out a little bit. Now, if I can time all of my other harvests out correctly, it won't be an issue, because then I can come in and put stuff in. For instance, if by the grace of God, my broccoli gets done and I can get it out of here by October, then that leaves this bed wide open to plant in. And so I may end up doing something like that, even though I want to let it sit there and rest. Now, I do want to say this, and I do want to let everybody know, I am considering at this point putting 2 more beds right here. And so if I do get a wild hair and do that, which I really think I need to, because I'm running out of rotational space to get a proper crop rotation, then I can put these will give me 2 more beds to work with. So there is a very good chance that that will happen. We'll just kind of have to see how that goes, and then we can, moving forward, continue to do that and work that into our plan. And that hinges on a lot of things, but I've got to price it out and see if it's worth it and see if I really want to do it. But if we do that, 2 feet from this bed, we're going to have another 4x8 bed, and then 2 feet from that bed, we'll have another 4x8 bed. And this area gets pure sun. So it'll be a lot, anything that requires a lot of sun will grow super fast and super hard. And that's kind of what we're looking for here. More room to grow out watermelons. Plus I'm tired of fighting this little bare patch right here. Well, that's a job I like to do in the middle of winter personally. But if I need to go ahead and put one up to get a place to plant, then that's what I'm gonna do, because I'm really liking this monocropping situation that I've got going on this year. It's working really good for me. So that's kind of where we sit with that. I'll just have to take it day by day and see what happens. Now, I will say this, looking for something to trellis over on this side of my trellises, and I don't know exactly what I want to do. So I was hoping that you guys would give me some ideas. So put them in the comments below what you think would do here. This doesn't get the most amount of sun, and I've been having some problems with stuff growing in it this year, but I think I'm gonna just go ahead and recompost it, amend it really good, get it going, and then see what we can have. But let me know what you would want. Something that's vining that grows up in the fall, that would be great. Especially anything that can keep growing through the spring. You know, I grew peas last year and they did really well. I didn't get the harvest I wanted, So I may redo that. But if you guys have like a shelling pea or something that loves cool weather, then definitely let me know what that is, because I'm at a loss. I picked a bad one. That's all I got to say. Just wasn't as productive as I wanted, and I didn't give it enough time. But I think if I go ahead at the end of August and plant that out, then we can have a month, a solid 6 weeks of germination and growing and strong sun to get that up and going before we can actually get going. And then we can start to get a harvest come in November and stuff like that. I think it'll work good, because our last frost date is not till the end of October. And generally speaking, that means it can be November before we get our first frost. And even then, it's literally a first frost, and then it'll just go right back to like fall weather. So we don't really hit frost and stay there. So that allows me to kind of stretch it out when I start planting these cold tolerant varieties. So it's tricky because I'm trying to go from heat tolerant to cold tolerant, and heat tolerant, cold tolerant varieties. There's a lot of tolerances going on around here. That's all I got to say. I had to sit in the shade, so sorry for the view. It's a little warm. But that being said, if I get these beds planted like I said I was, then that means we're 2 months ahead of last year for planting. And now last year I did get COVID right in the middle of September, and it kind of set me back. But at minimum, we'll be 6 weeks ahead of planting for fall. And so the way I'm looking at that is we'll hopefully get a harvest earlier on like when you're supposed to, and not having to like keep them alive all the way till through winter. And then 2, what that'll allow me to do is get things out of the garden. It'll be too cold to plant, and then I can let these garden beds rest for a month or 2 and really mulch them good, put some chicken manure on it. And what I like to do is I like to put fresh chicken manure down in the winter time when I let something rest, and then just let it go, and then let that manure age in the garden. And then come spring, it's like fireworks, man. It just takes right off. So one of my bees is flying around me, and now it's on me. So that's what we like to do. It didn't work out that way last year, and it didn't bother us because we were able to top off with topsoil. But I don't want to have to do that this year. I want to put the compost down, and then I want to put the mulch down, amend it, and rest it. That's what I would love to do, and give it about a month or 2 maybe. And if I have to have an empty garden, it'll be worth it, especially if I go ahead and get my harvest out. Because the way we have it planned out, certain things, we should be getting a continual harvest every week of something come fall. So we're in a little bit of a dull right now. You know, the bees are in a pollen dearth. We're kind of in a harvest dearth right now. But once we start getting those sweet potatoes and stuff, it's game on. So we're just kind of waiting for that. Now we're going to be harvesting more tomatoes soon. We're going to be doing our sweet potatoes. Our cucumbers will probably be finishing up. They're probably cooking right now as we speak. And our green beans, and then our peppers should come back to life once we start to get a little bit cooler. I'm going to feed them pretty heavy, get them boosted, and then just ride that wave in. And then that should be the harvesting for August. So you can see we're right on track. And so far it's been a pretty successful year, so I'm not going to complain. Goodbye.